all well. Tonight we've got quite a full panel. At the start, we will be bringing on Neil, who is the chairperson of the Trust, along with Andy Cousins, who's the chairperson of the OSC. They'll be with Vic. And then we've got a panel of Ray, Becky and Andy. And Andy Cousins and Neil will also stay on for the panel. So quite a busy night here. So first of all, without we go on with anything, we want to congratulate the women's team for winning the Wiltshire Cup yesterday. So 4-0 they won, very impressive game for them. So congratulations to everybody concerned with that. Let's bring Vic on. So I think he's got some other news, I expect. Hello.
Hi, Chris. Hiya. Yeah, I do have other news for you. Congratulations also to John Holloway, of course, who had a presentation on the pitch on Saturday. 31 years with the foundation, which is an extraordinary achievement. As a player, of course, to begin with Swindon Town and then with the Community Foundation. Many congratulations to John and many congratulations to the foundation who at the EFL Awards yesterday in London. Sadly, they didn't win the overall league award. That went to Charlton Athletic. But of course, as we know, they won the League Two award, which is a fantastic achievement. So, as always, many congratulations to the foundation, who are a wonderful, wonderful group of people. We give them all the very best. SAS. Now, if you're going to Walsall tomorrow, the bus leaves the county ground at 4:15. And as usual, there is free parking. What you do is you drive into the car park, get on the bus, give your registration number in. That gets forwarded to the club, and therefore you don't pay to park in the county ground car park. That's how it works. So 4:15 for that tomorrow. And then on Saturday, if you're off to Grimsby, 7:45 a.m. on Saturday morning. Do not forget, from the county ground in Swindon, it's a long way to Cleethorpes. And also on the 27th of April, the Swindon Cricket Club are holding their annual barbecue event, and the official supporters club will be holding a raffle, raising money, of course, for the Derby River Foundation, which is very close to getting to £12,000, which we've raised over the last season and a bit, and we would very much like to get there then. So if you could help us out on that again, that would be magnificent. Thank you.
And just a shout out for the end of season dinner. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And the auction prizes that we had. Thank you very much to the three people who bought the shirts from the auction. Fabulous monies raised for them. So that was fantastic. So brilliant. Okay, so let's bring Neil and Andy on.
Good evening.
Evening, Chris. Evening, Vic.
Okay, Neil and Andy.
Can I just say something about the end of season? Can I just say something about the end of season dinner? Oh, sorry, Chris, she's gone. I'd just like to thank the supporters club, especially Chris and Vic, for the extraordinary work they did. I think everyone that attended had a thoroughly enjoyable evening. But thank you very much, Chris, for all you did, and for Vic for your excellent comparing. So thank you.
Thank you. Neil, thank you very much, Steve, for joining us this evening. Lots of questions will come in. I've no doubt about it. First and foremost, can we talk Toiletgate? Now, this has appeared over the last day or so. And, you know, when you see the picture that appeared on social media on Saturday night, I was disturbed by it. I'm sure you were disturbed by it. And everybody attending the game would have been a little bit, what's this about? Now, as I understand it, it was Sharon Armfield who was attending Saturday as a Wimbledon fan, was in the away end of the Arkle stand, glanced up whilst in a cubicle and saw a shiny black object staring back and realised it was a camera. Now, the one thing you don't want to see in a toilet facility, of course, is a camera. Now, as I understand it, and you might be able to clear this up, the club say it's fitted with a motion blur, so supporters using the cubicle are not visible. And it's part of EFL regulations that cameras actually have a look at the whole concourse as a safety feature. Now, I've seen a picture on social media tonight where there's a sort of square blocked out, which is where the camera, I assume, is pointing. What do you know about this?
So I think we've tried to contact the club today. Unfortunately, we've not had a direct response from them. So I've seen the report on the BBC website. And I'm also aware of information from a separate source who has a good understanding of the situation. As you say, it's been reported that the camera isn't directly pointing into the latest toilets. It's in that location to give it a long peripheral view of the concourse area, and that the part of the feed which covers the cubicles of the toilets is blurred out. The BBC report states that the EFL and the police are aware of the coverage of the cameras in the Arkle stand and have approved their usage. And I've heard that secondhand as well. Like I say, we've not heard directly from the club today, but we're going on what we've seen reported through the BBC.
And will you be taking this further? As I understand it, they're thinking that they will be putting up notices for the next game, as I understand it.
Yeah, that's what we've heard. Again, not directly from the club. I mean, certainly we'll follow up and we'll get confirmed exactly what the situation is. I was hoping we'd be able to say something tonight, but that's not the case. It seems reasonable to have notices in the area explaining what those cameras are, what they cover, and to give peace of mind to supporters that the toilets aren't covered. It's not an unreasonable question to ask, given the location of them. And it's unfortunate that we're in this position. Sure.
Okay. Well, we'll wait to see if there's any further clarification coming in on that. Can we just start off with your relationship with the football club? Because it's a new board, although I think it's fair to say not a totally new board. Let's get into what lessons have you learned from? I think you're fair to say that mistakes have been made on the previous board. What have you learned from those mistakes?
I think one of the it's easy to look back and criticize what we did in the past. I mean, hindsight is a wonderful thing. Trying to strike the right communication balance between communicating too much when you don't have much to say and then not communicating at all, I think is the lesson that I've taken away. I mean, I sat on the old board for the last 2 years. I'm one of the 3 people that have carried forward into the new board. I think there were times last year where we went silent. We were busy in the background. It was a lack of no work being done, but a lot of that work was being done quietly, privately, and we weren't communicating that. And I think that created a lot of frustration from our members and our wider supporters. So in terms of one thing that we've already established as the new group, as the new board, we've set out our objectives and what we'd like to see happen moving forward and how we're going to work with the club. But we're going to be a lot more out there talking to people like yourselves, the Adver. James has already been on with the BBC. You'll see a lot more of that now. And we're going to try and find a better balance between still getting all that work done privately in the background, which has to be done, those communications with the club, and not all of that can be in the public eye. But at the same time, telling the supporters what we're doing, making sure the members are up to speed, monthly communication through the newsletter, as well as these type of forums. The other thing that we've got coming up, we're going to be sending out a survey to all of our members to get their thoughts on where we are as a club, as a trust, things around season tickets, on the field events, some of the back office stuff, and kind of reach out to the people that matter, which are the people that go and watch the game week in, week out. And that's something that will be coming up over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, there's been an article today by the Swindon Advertiser, regarding loans to the club, and the trust are concerned about loans to the club. What's your view on that?
Yeah, so we've got to be careful when we talk about this. So we're not concerned about money being lent into the club in the way that the owner is to fund the day-to-day operation. Without that, the club would go into a standstill, as it did under the previous owner. I think the point we're trying to make here is that whilst injecting the funds into the club is important, the more those loans grow and the total debt to the club, albeit under the current owner, increases, at some point in time, that debt will become bigger than the value of the club. And there's been lots of talk about making the club more sustainable, turning the stadium into a kind of a 7-day-a-week venue where the club can benefit from increased revenues into the club, and to start reducing the amount of funding which is required year on year. The sooner that starts, the better, because if whether it's Clen or any other owner continues to inject that kind of money in on a yearly basis, then that debt will increase, albeit it's owned to one person. which is far better than it being spread around third parties that are no longer connected with the club, and clearly clearing up of the debentures was a key part of that. But it's still a big number, and it's still growing, and we've got to break that cycle at some point, and we'll be working with the club to support them in kind of creating those additional revenue streams as soon as they're able.
Yeah, Daz Duncan has sent this question in. So the club keep borrowing to keep afloat, so we're in debt, hence we can't build a good team. I mean, at the end of the day, you know what supporters are concerned about? They're concerned about the green bit on a Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, aren't they? I mean, that's their main concern. But then their next concern as to whether the club will survive for another 5, 10, 15 years down the line. So where are you at with that? How happy are you with the way things are at the moment?
I think we're frustrated that it's likely that our league finishing position this year will be the worst in the club's history. It's difficult to escape that. At the same time, do you want to spend millions every year to try and get into the championship at the first go? Great if that's successful, because with that become greater crowds, greater revenue, whether that's through the turnstiles or through the TV deal. But if you get it wrong and you chase that money and you go after that kind of rapid rise up through the leagues, then you're then back into this kind of yo-yo situation. We then bounce back down through the leagues again with a huge debt and a bigger problem. So any growth, both on and off the pitch, has to be sustainable. We can't be in a position where we go up for one season, then we're bouncing back down again. And I think that does take time. I mean, we haven't got a Wrexham scenario where the owners have got millions to stick in every year. I think that's the balancing act, and we're all supporters. We all want a successful afternoon on Saturday, but I would hate that we go up only to bounce back down again and then fall through the trapdoor into the National League. I think that's a dangerous place to be that will take a lot of effort to get out, and we've got to do whatever we can, to make sure we don't go down next season, because I think there's a lot of concern around supporters at the moment that this kind of summer break and the transfer window is going to be a significant one to kind of break the cycle that we're in and to start going back up the leagues again, but doing it in a way which is sustainable, and that we're not relying on borrowed money all the time just to keep going.
Here's a question from Dean. If the trust approached the club to ask for a more in-depth explanation of what administrative costs involve and where the high increase in staff members was, as that showed a big jump. I mean, in a recent statement, you said you would encourage and support. Where does the word challenge come into that? Yeah,
it comes in as being a critical friend. I mean, on the financial review in itself, one thing that we're looking at right now is getting some our own independent advice into the information which is in the public domain through the company accounts and through the Fair Game report. And more importantly, comparing that to other clubs in League 1 and 2 to try and get a feeling as to how some of those costs compare to other clubs. I think in terms of the number of staff, the headcount question, it's our understanding that that increase came significantly through them insourcing the catering on a match day. I think up until that particular season, it was being outsourced, and we understand that the headcount increased significantly with the staff working in the kiosks on a match day. In terms of the admin costs, yeah, I mean that could do with more breaking out and better explanation. I think that's a more than reasonable question. There's some big numbers in there, and like I say, as a trust, we are working with somebody who's going to pull together a bit of a comparison report, which we hope will help supporters understand the numbers that have been put out there. We're also hoping that this is on the first step to more transparency and greater detail moving forwards. It's fair to say that the club didn't have to do the Fair Game report. They've paid for that themselves. It wasn't something that the trust or anybody else paid for. They've provided more detail than many other clubs provide. That said, we'd like to see more breakdown. We'd like to see more detail. And we hope that this is the first step of what will happen over the next coming season so we can get into the level of detail we'd like to see.
Many people thought the Fair Game report might be the silver bullet where, you know, everything was laid out and it wasn't what everybody expected. Where were you with the Fair Game report? How happy were you? Unhappy with it? I mean, the club have gone a step further. They've got the Fair Game report done, as you rightly say, which not many clubs have done. But were you happy with it?
We're happy that they've started that journey, but we'd like to see more detail. Without a doubt, I think that the journey that the trust have been on through the original review of the accounts and how that then flipped into supporting the fair game kind of strategy was the right strategy by getting somebody independent who does this for a living day in, day out, and was being paid to do it. I think was the right way forward. I think that we would like to see more detail, though. I think part of that is the club providing that detail to the fair game guys, so they can analyse and review that and put it into a kind of a format that is easily understandable. I mean, there's a lot of technical financial jargon in the annual report that I think supporters would benefit from kind of having their hands held through. And I think the report that we're currently working on, we think will help that. It won't provide any further numbers that we don't already have. It's more intended to kind of explain it in a little bit more detail and to try and compare it to other clubs and how that looks.
Yeah, it's on the lighter note, Sean says, what's happened to the Don Rogers statue? Hasn't ended up at Palace, has it? Yeah, in a multi-million-pound deal. Well, actually, that brings up a far wider point. The fact that there's this sort of feeling that, something has to be done within a certain time span after the joint venture went through. Otherwise, the council could buy the ground back. I mean, can you tell us exactly what's happening with that?
Yeah, sure. So the thing you're talking about there, Vic, is the 3-year buyback option. Yeah. So within 3 years of the purchase of the stadium, we needed to move forward with planning consent being secured and a contract being signed for development of at least £1 million. Initially, when it was being talked about before we signed the contract, it was linked directly to the roof on the Stratton Bank. But when the contracts were in their final negotiation, we negotiated to be much broader than that. So it's any stadium development of at least £1 million, whether that's the Stratton Bank roof, hospitality boxes, kind of knocking down a stand and rebuilding it, so long as the value of the project is substantial, and £1 million is that value. We're a year into that now. We've got 2 years to go. We're disappointed as a trust that we're not further down that line. We've had a couple of false starts. We've had to change that this is predominantly a club-led project, but the club have had to change the planning consultant that we were using. We're now engaged with a company called KSS, who undertook the design of the Wimbledon Stadium at Plough Lane, amongst many stadiums that they've been involved with. So these guys know their stuff. They've got the experience. They've got the history. We've got a joint venture board meeting coming up in a few weeks, and we're hoping to get a first kind of proper feasibility study from KSS that the club will present to that JV board with their ideas on how they'd like to move forward, both in terms of the bigger scheme, but also in terms of what we do first. The trust will support anything within reason that starts generating additional revenue. I think we recognise that it's all about driving additional revenue through stadium development. Putting a roof on the Stratton Bank, while it's quite an emotional thing, and I think gets a lot of support, when the trust did a survey 18 months ago before we bought the stadium, the roof itself wasn't at the top of the list. Putting a roof on the stadium, on the bank, won't necessarily increase revenue. More people may move out of the town end and go onto the bank or from other places, but is it going to increase revenue? So we certainly recognise and support whichever direction the club's going, so long as it's driving that additional revenue, which can then be kind of reinvested back into the playing squad and reducing the amount of money that the owner needs to inject into the club each year to keep it going.
There's also, of course, there was a bylaw, of course, with the ancient lights with the Stratton Bank, the houses behind. I mean, did that show up on the survey? Because I would imagine that the roof has to be a certain height, doesn't it? Before you can't go any higher than that.
Yeah, that's right. Way before my time, but I think this was looked at in the late 90s, I think it may have been. And certainly the concept of a roof is possible, but the impact of the shading on the gardens, on the back of the houses on Swithenham Road is something that would need to be taken into account. If you think about Nottingham Forest Stadium, they've got exactly the same scenario where at one end of the ground, the roof drops off to a lower level. And that is because you've got houses immediately behind that corner. So there are ways around it. It does limit what you can do with the bank. But as I say, I'm not sure that a roof on the Stratton Bank is necessarily the right thing to lead off with at the moment.
Okay. Paul says, are the trust asking the club where the money for redevelopment for the ground will come from when they don't have enough to run it as it is? I mean, financing of ground redevelopment is a massive thing. Where will the money come from?
It's likely that the money will come from different sources than the money that the owner uses to fund the club on a day-to-day basis. Part of it will probably come from debt. Part of it will probably come from private investment, but all of it will need a business plan to support it. And that comes back to that revenue generating kind of a strategy again. So yeah, it's a fair question to ask. But yeah, we're talking about serious money needed to do this, and it's likely going to come from a different place than Clen Mulfooney's kind of day-to-day cash assets, which he's using to fund the club.
Let's have a look. Kevin says, have the new trust board had any communication with Clen Mulfooney? Now, as you'll imagine, Clem did say at the fans forum that he would like regular video updates. We've not had any of those. Presumably you are talking, though, at some point to the owner.
Yeah. So the trust board is made up of 9 people. So we've not all got on a call with Clem since we had our AGM at the end of February. But one of the board members has had 2 long conversations with him so far, with a commitment that we're going to get some quality time with him when he comes over towards the end of the month. So yeah, we're in communication with him, both by phone, but also by message. And we look forward to him arriving and having that opportunity to sit down properly over a coffee and talking through where we are.
Sure. This is from Richard. Neil is being very diplomatic when noting the lack of detail in the fair game report. It put very little info into the public domain that wasn't already there. And we still don't know, even in broad terms, what the admin costs, 3.6 million, are made up of. Does anyone at the trust know this? I mean, do you have any inside information that you can't share because of, confidentiality, things like that?
Yeah, so people remember that back in, I think it was September time, but don't quote me on that. We were invited by the owner to go in and look at the books. That process took a little while to get started, and when it did, it consisted of 1 2-hour meeting. At that meeting, we were unable to take any information away. We were invited to review what was on the table and what was on the screen, but we were unable to actually take copies away, make any notes or anything like that. At the time, we thought that would be the first of a number of those kind of conversations and meetings that we could build up a working knowledge and then work with the club on what they were prepared for us to put into the public domain. It was at that stage that the strategy changed, and the idea of using Fair Game as a kind of a third-party professional organisation with the time and the resources to do it was then introduced. So we don't have inside information. We have nothing that we're able to put into the public domain to help answer that question. What we do have is kind of our understanding of what admin costs are likely to be based on information that goes into the club accounts, has been used previously, and also making comparisons to other clubs as well. But in terms of providing that extra level of detail that I know a lot of supporters are looking for, we're not going to have that this year. We've got what we've got. We've asked for kind of that access, and Fair Game is that kind of solution. We'd certainly like to see more detail. I don't think we're going to get it for the financial year that's now been published.
Okay, a couple of more questions, and we'll get into the panel. Because obviously, you'll be aware. Obviously, there's a lot of interest, and we thank you very much for your time this evening. And it'd be nice to get a regular dialogue with you, Neil, because this is what it's about, isn't it? Talking
no problem at all. We're happy to do that.
Yeah, Mark says, good evening. Surely the idea of the roof on the refurbished Stratton Bank is essential, as it would mean that this becomes a proper away end and segregation can end in the Arkle stand. I understand that rebuilt town end might be the first priority, but in time, this must be part of the overhaul of what is an increasingly tired stadium. Michael says, get the team and manager first. Keep a manager for longer than 5 minutes. Yeah, 34 managers since the year 2000, I think it's fair to say. Keep trotting that out, but it's true. Dad says, to be fair, what's the point in investing in the team or renovations when money being made clearly isn't being used for what it should be? Feels like the fans aren't being considered at all. Clubs like away fans in the side stands as tickets cost more. Right, let's wrap this bit up then. Where are you with this process? obviously you've been on the trust board before. You were part of that, and you'll be aware that the trust got quite a bit of stick over that. I think you first to hold your hands up over that. There's been a bit of stick of the new trust board since it's been in place. Are you happy that things are moving in the right direction?
Generally, yes. I mean, look, we're not perfect. All of us are volunteers. All of us do this for the love of it. Vic and Andy, the three of us walked into the stadium together on Saturday. We get no perks for doing this. We don't get free tickets. We do it for the love of it. And all of us do it to the best of our ability. Does that mean that we make the odd mistake along the way? Yes, we do. But we learn from it and we move forward. I think the new board are very much committed to working as a team, to having a common, constant message rather than individuals going off making their own comments at the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think that's something that we've certainly learned from in the past, and we're trying really hard to kind of stick to that moving forwards. I think one of the comments you just asked about the Stratton Bank, this is going back a few months, but one of the early conversations we had about the bank is that the bank will need to be done at some stage if we're then going to do further redevelopment of, say, the town end. You can't knock the town end down and do anything with that if you haven't got somewhere for those people to move to temporarily while you're undertaking that work. So I think Stratton Bank will come. It has to come at some point. I could quite easily see that being split down the middle, and we've had conversations how we could bring the entrance from Swithingham Road back into life in that corner where the mural currently is, and you would bring away supporters in through that corner, and then the other side of Stratton Bank being used for home fans entering from the Arkle side. So that should give supporters some confidence that we are talking about those kind of things, about how you might use the stadium and how it's that kind of jigsaw puzzle of how you move the different pieces around to get that end result. But as I said a moment ago, I don't think the bank is necessarily the first thing that we go after. I think that needs to come later, without a doubt. But right now, the club needs additional revenue coming through the door, and I don't think the bank alone is going to do that.
Okay, just finally, lots of questions coming in regarding the manager. Derek Adams was there Saturday. You were in hospitality, so you might have had a better view of him than I did. But seems to be the favourite at the minute. Do you have any inside information on that?
Not a thing. I mean, me, my family and friends had our annual trip into hospitality away from the usual seats in the Don Rogers. And if I'm honest, I wouldn't be able to pick him out from a crowd. So I was literally going on what I was seeing on social media. Look, I'm not chairman of the trust because of my football knowledge or analysis of games. I think there's lots of people better placed than I to talk about tactics and strategy, my wife being one of them. What I do think is that an early decision needs to be made. I think there's great kind of apprehension, concern about what's coming next. I think a good friend of mine summed it up really well a few days ago. We're lacking hope as supporters. You go into kind of the end of one season, you're moving into the next, everyone's already looking out for the fixtures day, first game of the season, getting your season tickets, getting organised for what's ahead. I think there's a lack of hope at the moment. And I think we'll do our bit as a trust to encourage the club to get that hope back into the supporters. We need to drive season tickets. I mean, if money's an issue, season ticket renewals dropping off isn't going to help. So I think things like kind of management team for next year, the quicker that's communicated to supporters, the quicker that's confirmed, the better. And I think it has to be done with an eye to what's going to give supporters hope and excitement going into the new season.
Yeah, I think everybody would agree with that. Just a couple more comments, and then we'll move on. Hi, John. Exactly. That's why the first team needs to be sorted first. Winning equals more fans, more income, then redevelopment. To be brutally honest, as Kevin, we need to start moving up the league before thinking about redevelopment of the stadium. There've been loads of, what we'll do, Neil, is we'll pass these comments on to you if that's okay.
No problem.
So that you can have a look at the ones that we didn't get to, but there are loads coming in, and then you can have a look through and maybe come up with some answers for the people that have asked those questions. Is that okay with you?
More than happy to do that.
Brilliant. Well, you said you weren't any good with your football tactics and analysis. We'll find out in a minute.
No, I'm in trouble.
Thank you very much, Steve, for your time this evening. Andy?
Thank you very much, Neil. Yeah, I think that he's answered all the questions very, very sensibly. I'd like to say that historically the trust and the supporters club, we all work very closely together, the previous board and this one, and I think as a combination between them, we support the club. We will act as critical friends, but we're all in it together. We all love the club, and our intentions is certainly to have a far better season than we had this year. And because the more successful they are, the more fun it is, and that's what the OSC really stands for. I mean, the trust, they have the ignominy, for want of a better word, to do all the hard stuff and nasty stuff, and we have all the fun bit, and that includes sort of like, as I said earlier, organising the extraordinary end of season dinner and things like that. So we'll continue to work really, really well with the trust, and also in work with the club. So long may that continue.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much, Steve, for your comment. We all want the club to be better on the pitch, but we have a timescale to start redeveloping the ground, hence the reason for discussions on it. Neil, thank you very much indeed. You are now part of the Monday night panel, we are also joined by two gentlemen who are sort of joined at the hip on a Saturday now, because they organised the programme sale in the Legends Lounge. All the money goes to Derby Rimmer. Andy Garrett, Ray Bunce, hello to you.
Good evening, Vic.
Good evening, Vic. All right.
All right, thank you very much. And Becky Trigg, hello to you. Thank you very much, Steve, for joining us this evening.
Hi, Vic.
Shall we start with the news from Saturday then? Swindon Town 3, AFC Wimbledon 2. Becky, what was your view of it?
Well, I had a very happy 7-year-old when I picked him up, which was good. I've got to be honest, he was a little bit apprehensive to go. He's not been enjoying it lately. He's a fickle 7-year-old, I suppose. And actually going back to some of the points that you made earlier, I think we do need a little bit more. I do feel like people are getting a little bit despondent with everything. I mean, yeah, it was great to pick him up and hear him telling me all about, oh, we had this and I heard this person saying this and I watched this and I learned this. I don't know any of these technicalities he teaches me, but I do definitely find that he's not as enthusiastic as he was, especially at the start of the season. Yeah, I mean, for him, he thought a red card was phenomenal. I don't think he quite understands the impact it will be for us, but there you go. That's the mind of a 7-year-old. He was happy, so as his mum, I'm happy too.
Yeah, our two grandsons were very happy with it at the end of the game. Andy, you were sat near them. You will notice they were very happy, were they not? What was your view of the game?
Yeah, I think, extremely good game. We've had 2 games now where it's been very, very positive and 2 good performances. And it makes you wonder whether the introduction of, Shan coming in and making a bit of a difference in the way that we're playing and the way that we're set up. I think, you can only assume that is the case, because over the last 2 games, we've been a hell of a lot better. And, you certainly on Saturday, the second half was unbelievable. We basically come out and tore them apart. And, it's really encouraging.
Dawson Devoy, Ray, I would say those words to you. What difference did he make when he came on?
Yeah, he made a big difference, Vic. He gave us that threat, I think, getting into their box, really. I didn't think we were in a lot of trouble first half. It wasn't very entertaining first half, but aside from the first minute, I didn't think we were in much trouble first half. But he gave us a bit of a cutting edge, really, second half. So I thought he had a good influence on it. But for me, I mean, it's the first time I'd had a chance to see sort of Nandy sat in the midfield. Actually, what we've all been craving, I think he's made a huge difference. And obviously, he can hardly walk at the end, but we've been waiting for that for so long, and he made a huge difference. We had a better shape about us, and that's why I think it didn't feel like that we're in that much trouble first half. We did have a little bit of strength there and a bit of resistance when they did go forward. So Devoy had a massive impact, but I thought. And Andy and also Cocolo had a really good game on Saturday. He seems to have really stepped on as well. So for me, it was a step on. I actually enjoyed the second half. It was very League Two, but it was good to sort of come up against a side that had to win, and it made for an event really. And I thought the second half was really entertaining.
Malcolm says, Beck, I'm 70 plus and I'm not happy. That says, me and my 16-year-old aren't happy. 2 good games out of 43 really isn't exciting. Andy C, I mean, obviously, Namdi Oberfor, my goodness, Ray said the word huge. He's a unit, and he's the unit we wanted, basically.
Well, I remember being on the panel here after the Morecambe game. Now, that was in a period when we were doing quite well. And a certain Mr. Bowden was on with us, wasn't he? And we were talking about central defensive midfielders, and we were waxing lyrical about Anthony Grant. And then we go back a little bit further, and people like Jonathan Douglas, I mean, Rowan Ince, for example, Anthony Grant, and of course, the great Ross McLaren. And it's been crying out all season, hasn't it? And, we don't want to be disrespectful to management, but I think most people that follow Swindon have been saying a CDM, as it's now called, is essential, especially when you play a back three like we do and attacking wing backs. And so he's come in, and although he's sort of like, you could tell he was not match fit at Sutton, and he was outstanding at Barrow. And again, he was a force until he went off on Saturday. And not only does what he does, it disrupts the opponents, but it also releases the more sort of skillful players that we've got. I mean, Kane has started to flourish, and McEachran's been looking better. So it's a double win for me, and it's just a shame it's not October now, isn't it? It's April. But hey ho.
Yeah, they need to get him signed on a contract as soon as possible. Neil, I don't know if were you there in time? I mean, hospitality was still winding and dining until 20 minutes into the first half. Did you miss the first? I mean, we all sat there and we went, 90 seconds. 1-0. That's that then. It's going to be 4 or 5-0. I did not see a win coming. What were your thoughts?
Yeah. Although half of my group were still watching the Grand National at the start of the second half, we did make it out for the whole game. It was good to have something to get excited about. I agree with Ray. Apart from those first few minutes, I thought we looked good. We looked strong. My party were actually in as match day sponsors, so we had to choose who the man of the match was. I thought Dokes had another really good game. Bit baffled by his second yellow, if I'm honest. I mean, that was going on right down in front of us, and you could see that he was kind of talking to the fourth official as if to say, well, hang on a second, what's going on? So I thought he was really unfortunate, and obviously he'll be a big loss tomorrow night. Between us, we were struggling to pick between Kokolo and Devoy, and I think Kokolo had a great first half. Obviously, an impact substitution, got the man of the match in the end. But I think it was just great that it was an entertaining second half, an entertaining game, bit of an atmosphere around the ground again, and it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, sure. This is a couple of comments regarding Saturday, but from Daz St George and Andy G. I wanted to bring this up with you. He says, fourth official told Dokes to wait to take the throw in. Surely the ref would have heard that as well on his earpiece. Shocking decision. Now, apparently the fourth official is saying he didn't tell him to delay the throw in. I mean, it just seemed he'd only just got the ball and he got a yellow card and then a sending off. It seemed ridiculous considering the amount of time wasting we've seen at the camp. And I'm not one of these who has a go at game management, as they call it these days, because I'd love Swindon to do it more. But it didn't seem to me an overuse of game management to me.
No, not at all. Okay, he probably had been wasting a little bit of time before that with throw-ins, but at that point, he'd only just picked up the ball. So
yeah, Neil Cowley said 7 seconds he had the ball.
Yeah, exactly. He picked up the ball, waiting to throw in, and he was booked. And, crazy, absolutely crazy decision, and should have never have been sent off.
Because then, of course, we have the usual Swindon thing where we're 3-1 up, looking comfortable, and then they get a second, and it's the usual Swindon thing. You can't actually relax for the last 3 or 4 minutes, can you?
Exactly. Yeah. You're sort of like on the edge of your seat, aren't you, for the last few minutes of the game? And even it always seems to me as even when we're sort of 2 goals up, as though you go into injury time and you still feel a bit apprehensive because you may give away something, but
you were at Accrington, Andy. That's why.
I mean, the problem is, as soon as he held up 6 minutes, you're going, 6 minutes. Never mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Beck, can you just tell us about your family? Because what effect does a Swindon win, loss, draw have on your family on a Saturday night?
It's very different than it used to be. I remember being about 7 or 8 and going to games with my dad, and at the time it ruined my dad's Saturday night, you know, if we had a loss. I think, and he won't mind me saying, he's a bit long in the tooth for it now, but he's definitely passed that on to my son. If we've lost, if we've played badly, it's all I hear. Mummy, we should have done this. Mummy, we should have done that. When you take over as manager, mate, you can do whatever you like. I mean, yeah, it's. I think even now, my husband, my dad, my son, they've all just got to the point where it's not the same. They don't actually feel as much disappointment anymore, because it just seems to be a bit more of the norm. And I don't like to be that doom and gloom person. You know, I've been a Swindon Town supporter for over 30 years. I've seen some great memories and things like that. And I love nothing more than being able to celebrate on a Saturday night with my son. You know, we've had a really good game. But me and my husband said the other day, we'd love to take him to Wembley to see some of these, you know, some of the previous games that we've had there. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to experience the Charlie Austin bobble again or anything like that. I remember crying myself. But, you know, I'd love to take him to a playoff final. I'd love to get automatically promoted, but I'm trying not to jump the gun here. Yeah, it's let's just hope even to be in 8th place next year. That'll do. At the moment, nobody wants to even be thinking, oh yeah, it's just about mathematically possible that we're staying up. That's miserable. That's really miserable. And no wonder everybody's losing interest.
Sure. Ray, there was a Fraser Blake Tracy bobble in the first minute in the first half, wasn't there?
Yeah, I'd written that down actually. I was going to talk about that, but that wasn't the only one either. And to be honest, probably like you, I played on some horrendous pitches when I was young, but I don't remember bobbles like that. It's incredible. It's like it's a special surface, obviously designed for the bobble, but it was affecting a number of players on Saturday again. Add in the wind as well, which is traditional, but second half was quite breezy. So actually, to get a good second half, it was despite those conditions as well. So, yeah, but the pitch, I really hope in the summer, goodness knows what actually causes it to do that. But hopefully the guys know, and in the summer we do something about it, because it's massively affecting the ability to pass the ball.
There was a bit of a transition, wasn't it, between the last groundsman leaving and the new groundsman taking over. And, of course, I think it's fair to say that we've had a horrendous winter. I mean, I'm looking out the window now. The trees are blowing around. It might rain in a minute. You know, I mean, there's been so much rain. It must be a nightmare being a groundsman. And, you know, hard work they put into it. But that bobble was quite extraordinary. It went straight over his foot. The bobbles had nothing to do with my skill, by the way, Ray. It was just my inability to kick the ball properly. That's probably...
That's what... Yeah, I think that was mine, Vic, as well. But
yeah.
But yeah, no, I'll be glad to see the back of the pitch this year. Yes, say no disrespect to anybody who's been looking after it. Whatever has caused it, hopefully we get over it in the summer.
Yeah, they've got the concerts, I think, at the end of May, haven't they? And then it's an immediate... Neil, they got an immediate pitch renovation coming up straight after that. Is that the case?
Yeah, I believe so. We've not seen or heard in terms of what that renovation looks like. But certainly, I think it's coming straight up after the concerts are over. I think the new guy, Matt, has a plan for what needs to be done. It's interesting. I had the honour of sitting next to Don Rogers at a recent advisory board when the pitch was being talked about and the condition of it. And Don turned around and said, it's like a bowling green compared to some of the pitches he used to play on.
Sure.
Puts everything in context a little bit.
I'll give you Wembley 1969, County Ground 2024, compare and contrast. Andy, obviously, we've got Walsall tomorrow night, and looking at the respective positions, Swindon on 53 points from 43 games, goal difference -3, could go up a couple of places with a win. Walsall 11th. 0.62, 43 games played, goal difference of 0, so they're more than comfortable. The aforementioned Oberfor, is it too much to ask him to play 2 games in 3 days? Bearing in mind he hasn't played for so long.
Interesting, isn't it? Yes. I mean, and maybe that was what he was injured, but it was a precaution whether he came off. I'd like to think that he starts. I was just thinking about, you mentioned about it sort of, we went up there last year. It was a Tuesday night, slightly meaningless game, but it just cast my mind about 2 years ago. The the fixture. Just what a day that was, wasn't it? It was the last game of the season. What was it? 3,500 of us in there, packed the ground.
Yeah.
You know how times are, changing. Let's hope that all changes very quickly back. But yeah, tomorrow. Going back to tomorrow, it'll be interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's near the end of the season. Hopefully that he can put his strongest side out, which obviously includes Nandy. I'd like to see the starting 11 that started Saturday, and of course the previous Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, two games in a row, Andy. I mean, we're not used to unchanged teams. Oh, it's been, chop changed all over the place. But that was an extraordinary thing to see that on Saturday, and a welcome sight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see, the same side coming out again. When you look back, I was only looking at sort of the 89-90 season. The amount of, I think there was 8 players that we had that season which played more than 50 games, and there was 2 or 3 that played over 60. You don't get that anymore. It's chopping and changing all the time. And to be honest, I don't think it's good. I think, it's good to keep a side that know each other, know how each other play. It's good to keep a core side together.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Michael says, Beck, that the fitness of players is something to be questioned about when it comes to the last 10 minutes of the game. Now, I think we should bring into another factor into this, because this season we've seen the aforementioned 6 minutes of stoppage time. That's been a big change this season. I mean, we've seen 10 minutes. I mean, we're now talking about games of over 100 minutes long. So that must have an effect come the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I appreciate that they are elite athletes, but until they do start getting used to playing, 92, 94, 96 minutes, that, their fitness is going to drop. Okay, I get it that, they should be able to last a little bit longer, but they are League Two footballers for a reason. And I hate to say that, I don't want to criticize anybody, but, they are used to playing 45, 60 minutes before occasionally being subbed off. I mean, I've spoken about this many a time. One of my favourite memories from sort of 10 years ago is Yasser Kassim going to the sidelines on 75 minutes, eating a sandwich. It's something that my family talk about quite frequently. He obviously needed a peanut butter sandwich or whatever it was just to give him that extra bit of energy. If that's what they need and they've got to come off at 60, 75 minutes to have a sandwich, crack on if that's what you need to keep yourself going to 100 minutes.
Did you ever find out what was in the sandwich? I mean, you mentioned peanut butter there, but did you ever find out what was in it?
No, I'm guessing. And that was also a hot topic of conversation as well, what the sandwich would be. It's clearly exciting in our house.
We must send him an email and ask him what was in the
sandwich.
I'd love to know.
I'd love to know.
Because they have gels now, don't they? They have those magic gels that they sort of rip the top off and then they can...
Yeah, it's not quite as exciting, though, as seeing him whip out a sandwich from a bit of tinfoil.
No, there you go, Neil. Maybe the trust can bring this up and find out, what sandwiches the players would prefer after 75 minutes.
To give them that extra bit of energy. I think it's a crucial question, absolutely.
We'll add it to the list for the advisory board in a few weeks' time.
Cheers, Neil. Thank you.
This is from Chris. This is mine and my family's first season at the county ground. My kids have loved it. Getting the programme every game. Ray might remember the kids from Saturday. One of my boys had flowers for our friend and the other boy had a bag with chocolate in it. But the boys keep saying win, lose or draw. They say the same thing. We will stick by the team. They love Gavin and they want him to get the job full time. So there you are. They come in and get programmes every game, you two. Do you know those two?
Yeah, I think I remember seeing them. Yeah.
Excellent. What we should say, of course, Beck, has your 7-year-old been in the junior Reds room?
Not this season, no.
She'd go in there. It's very good in there now. So a lot of work's gone into it. So I think it would enjoy the experience even more. So there we go. Make it a thing for the last game of the season. Take it into the junior Reds room.
That's his birthday weekend. So yeah, he'd be happy for that.
Excellent. And there's a junior Reds party on the 25th as well, which is a Thursday night, 6:30 in the Legends Lounge. It costs £1 and it's a great evening's entertainment. There's a disco, they get food, penalty shootout, all that stuff, all for £1. It's It's not bad, is it? Right, Andy C. What about Saturday, tomorrow's night's fixtures? Now, Colchester take on Grimsby. Grimsby all but safe. Colchester not all but safe. Crawley against Barrow, a playoff contending type match. Mansfield against Accrington. Mansfield, I think, need a point to go up. Notts County against Stockport, who are already promoted. Walsall, Swindon, of course. Colchester, they have 41 points from 42 games with a goal difference of minus 19. Sutton played 44, 40 points from minus 25 goal difference and all but gone. Forest Green, 36 points, minus 36 goal difference with 2 games left to play. It looks as though Sutton and Forest Green are favourites. Would you agree with that?
I think so, yeah, because obviously Colchester have got 2 games in hand. And I would hazard a guess those 2 games in hand are probably as a result of their... we're talking about pitches and the county ground, you know. They can't get it right. They couldn't get it right at the start of the season, could they?
No.
So I would assume that Sutton look likely the ones to fail. Although you never know. You never know. It's not over till the very end. And as far as the other end's concerned, I think Mansfield need 1 or 2 points. Looks like they're the third one going up. I don't really like looking at the top there. It hurts too much, doesn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Vic's gone. You back with us, Vic? Whilst Vic returns, I just want to say that the 2 gentlemen on here, Ray and Andy, what they do in the Legends Lounge. Ray, do you know just very quickly sort of say what the old rationale behind it is and what your plan is to do going forward?
Yeah, so it was Andy's baby really. So I've been helping Andy sort of over the last period, and they've been kind of ongoing for a little while now. But we've been sort of taking donations for program sales effectively, and we're in the process of actually creating an inventory. We've logged over 1,500 at the moment. We've got at least that to go again, and we will be taking we're already taking a few orders. Actually, people have got special dates and they remember and they want the program for. So as we go forward sort of next year, we will be promoting the lists that we've got. We'll be taking sort of, matches from people they want us to look out for, and along the way raising donations for next year's charity as well. And and as well as obviously, being able to deal with the programs we've got, we will always be looking for donations and more as well to keep it going. So there is quite a turnover on a Saturday now or Tuesday night. But yeah, it's a full-time job at the moment because we're getting the inventory sorted out. Once we got it under control, hopefully the hours will drop a little bit.
It looks like we've lost Vic temporarily, so I better sort of step in. I don't know, I'm not very good at this, but we'll give it a go. And Neil, are you planning to go tomorrow night at all? You're probably sort of somewhere on the other side of the world, aren't you?
Yeah, so I'm currently in Keflavik in Iceland. Well, I'm looking out the window. It's a beautiful blue sky, sunny day, but it's only 2 degrees. So that's my excuses for not going to Warsaw on a Tuesday night.
Okay, fine. Andy, you're going tomorrow night, and I take it you're going on Saturday as well, aren't you? Oh, Andy's joined Vic in the Frozen Club. I think I'll have to jump with you. Beck, I guess your last game will be on for the Morecambe game on the 27th. Yeah. Yes,
yeah, that's the last one. We were supposed to be going to Walsall tomorrow night. We were going to give him a little half-term treat, extended half-term treat. But he's got an operation, my boy, on Wednesday morning. So we've had to ruin his day completely or ruin his week by telling him that he's not going. He loves a Tuesday night game. He loves an away game even more so. So, yeah, very, very disappointed that we're not going tomorrow night. We love a trip to Walsall as well.
Yeah, that's right, indeed. Ray, what about yourself? Are you going to the last 3 or?
Yeah, no, I'm going to the last one. I might follow in tomorrow for the last time. I think that ends at the end of the season, doesn't it? So I follow tomorrow, and I'm kind of working my way through the grounds. I've done both of these next 2, and so I'm keen to get to the ones this year that I haven't been to, but I'm looking to up the number next year. So I've been to
Grimsby got an outstanding chip shop, hasn't it, Andy? If he's still
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, then. So we come to the end of the season. Next season, what's your hopes on the field, Neil? Seriously.
It feels like every close season, every transfer window, we say this is the most important transfer window we've had in a long time. It feels like that phrase is being overused year on year, but it does feel like the next transfer window is huge, both in terms of management, again, kind of behind the scenes coaching staff, and then the players. And as I said to Vic earlier, when I see the owner in a week or two's time, I'll be saying to him, look, let's learn from the lessons from previous years. Let's not try and do all of our business going into the first game of the season. Let's try and get the foundations of a squad in place. Let's try and build on that squad year on year instead of starting from a blank sheet of paper every year. So I think we have options over a number of players. I think the decisions on those options should be taken as quickly as possible. I just want to get back to enjoying the football on the pitch and being at the right end of the table. When we think back to August and September last year and some of those crazy games, the 5-5 at Wrexham, I mean, what we'd give for a few games like that at the moment. I think that's my hope for next year.
Okay. How about you, Andy? And what about players that we currently got? What would success look like in terms of the current squad and how many we can retain? I know some will obviously be with us.
Yeah, there's a few obviously that are staying on. I know Jake Kane's got another year on his contract, and I know that there's a few others. I think we need to keep Nnamdi definitely, as we've already said. He's a holding defensive midfielder. You definitely need to keep him. As of the others, Paul Glatzel, obviously, we need to make sure that we keep in hold of him. To be honest, and Williams Kokolo is probably another one as well. As for the rest, I just want to try and make sure that we do our business early, make sure that we build a team early on, and we've got people in early on. And I know last season, we had Michael Flynn in early, but it just didn't seem to work, did it? We were still sort of chasing around after players sort of late on, just before the transfer window shut.
So Beck, what about yourself? How do you feel next season's looking like? And one little question, Paul Glatzel, what would you do with Paul Glatzel?
I'd love to keep him. I would love to keep him. For me, I'd like to keep Blake Tracy as well. I think he's a really strong character, and I think we should sort of build the team around him. I think we have got some really good options. I'm hoping, as Andy said, that we can build on it early. I remember, a couple of seasons ago where we're talking middle of July before we even start signing anybody. And then we've got one or two pre-season friendlies before that's it. We're straight in with a team of players that have played one or two games. I'm just hoping for a little bit more stability, to not be panicking as the transfer window is shutting, thinking, have we actually signed anybody? A little bit of transparency from the club, I think, would go a long way. To be honest, I think that's the key to it. I think as long as we could get something just to say this might be happening, this might happen, I think it just gives the fans something they need. But for me, as long as we can hopefully look to go up to League One, as long as we're safe and not worrying about it next season, that for me is a benefit. Again, we just want to enjoy the football.
Let me just jump a minute to Vic. He normally asks the questions. Let's ask him one today. What's your hopes and aspirations for 24-25, Mr. Morgan?
Promotion. Promotion, clearly, obviously. Sorry about that. The internet dived out in the village for some reason, but we are in Devon, so anything's possible. The horses weren't quite running quickly enough, I think it's fair to say. Realistically, mid-table. I've got to say, it disappoints me to say that, but if we're comfortably mid-table with no actual possibility of going down at any point, that would really be good. Daz has just said, my daughter would love to see Harry stay, get given the proper chance. Interesting. Ray, Harry staying. I mean, I'd love him to stay because he's a talisman, obviously.
Yeah.
Contracted to Hibs.
Yeah, likewise. I can't really see that, and you know, let's hope that behind it all, he's still going on really well with his recovery, because we're only seeing glimpses of him at the moment, aren't we? So that's probably the most important thing, is that health-wise he goes on and enjoys his career. But yeah, for me, I mean, I'm a bit in the same camp as you, Vic. Really, I don't think we're not going to go storming up the leagues at the moment. We haven't got the setup for it. I just want to see us well away from the trapdoor. And actually being a bit competitive. There's a bit of hope, I think, because if you look, you know, what came out of January, if you look at Glatzel, you look at Drynan, I think McGurk's got plenty to offer. And then obviously with Nandy coming in, it seems like, you know, behind the scenes, and bear in mind, we've had our hands tied behind our backs in the transfer window. I've got a little bit of faith that maybe there will be a little bit more of that coming through. And probably Shan is as a result of Jamie Russell as well. So if you look at some of those changes, let's just hope we see a few more going into the summer. And I totally agree with everybody. Not last minute again.
So. Yeah, nobody wants to. I mean, the great thing about going to pre-season friendlies in years gone by was you turn up and see the new signings, and they'd be in pre-season friendlies, which we don't seem to see. Darren has just sent this message, which we should give a message. If anybody wants to see a decent game of football at the county ground tomorrow evening, it's Swindon Supermarine versus Chippenham Town Football Club, the Wiltshire Premier Shield final. That's a 7:45 kickoff tomorrow night at the county ground. That's Swindon Supermarine versus Chippenham Town Football Club. And just to wrap up, Neil, where we started, really, a question for Neil. Do the Trust seriously expect Clem to provide a decent budget for players? Do you, I mean, you know, again, I don't know what input or knowledge you have of that, but do you expect that to happen?
I mean, we don't know what his playing budget is for next year. We can certainly tell him our thoughts on that. You then get into the whole world of was the money available this year, and if it was it spent wisely? Should that budget be higher? We've all heard phrases before about competitive playing budgets at this time of year. The proof will be in the pudding. I think it's not in the owner's interests for the club to get relegated at some point in the future, whether it's next week or in 5 years' time, when he does decide to sell the club and move on. It'll get more value for a club at the top end of League Two moving into League One than he will if it's in the National League. So I'd hope that, I mean, he's not daft. He's the businessman. He recognises that to move forward, he's got to invest. And I'm hopeful, but we'll certainly have those conversations with him that we drive forward next year and not go backwards.
Yeah, we all hope that. I mean, I think it's been miserable, hasn't it? Let's be honest. But the last two games at least have shown some sort of green shoots of recovery. Let's hope they get 3 more wins to finish off the season in some sort of style. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you, Neil, for your time as well tonight. Lots of questions answered. I'm sure we will ask them again at some juncture. And if we can keep this dialogue going much more, that's fabulous. So thank you very much indeed. And apologies once again for the Devon interruption in the internet. But you know what it's like down here. It's a bit, you know, bit wild.
Thank you ever so much, everybody. Lots of questions answered, lots of opinions on it. So fantastic. Vic and I next week have got a going back in time a little way, as in like 30 years. We have got Brian Kilcline on. So that should be interesting. Hear all about houseboats and things, which should be good.
Johnny,
so, we'll try.
He's going to tell me how he tackled me in Portugal.
Week. We'll see everybody. And Grimsby who are travelling. Other than that, we'll see you Monday. See you soon.
See you.